So to bring in a file into an assembly, so this is a new assembly document. And one of the ways you can insert a document is just to go to Insert, Component, and you can either insert a new component or a new assembly or an existing, because these parts are already existing. So I'm going to click on Existing Part. So you can, so this comes back up. So if it's already open, you can just select it from here. If it's not, that's when you click on Browse. So it may be in your Downloads folder right now. Depending on where it is, you can get that from these. Okay, so I'm going to click on, let's see, how about the wheel plate? That'll be the first thing. I'm going to just insert that one. And just that one. So, and it puts it underneath your mouse, so you can kind of locate it. So I'm just going to drop it right there. And you see that it's floating above everything, and it's not really in the center of my, my SOLIDWORKS universe. So what I want to do is mate it. So before I do that, maybe I want to insert the other ones too. So this time I'm going to go to my folder. And instead of going to Insert to the menu and saying Insert, and I'm just going to go straight from this assembly folder. And I'm just going to bring the bracket. I'm just going to drag it right from the folder into my window. So you can interactively just drag things in. So that's another way of inserting part files. And then another way, if you have it open, you can just drag it into your assembly folder. So this is the part file. And if I go to Window and say Tile horizontally, I can see the assembly down here, and I can see the part up here. So it does like a split screen here. So that's Window, Tile horizontally. You can also tile vertically, but I think you get less space that way, because you have, the feature tree on both. You can do it that way, depending on how complex the model is. You might get less space. So I'll leave it on vertically here. So the other way of bringing the part in is if you click on the very top thing in your feature tree where it says Wheel 1, you can drag that into your assembly. So that's the third way of bringing it in. Okay. And then the rest of them, I'll just drag them in. I'm going to drag in, let's see, the pin and the axle. So I think that makes everything. Yeah. So I can close this one out now and expand that one. Okay, so all my pieces are just floating out in space here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is, okay, what's going to be the anchor piece? What's going to be the first piece that's going to be serve as maybe like the base, or maybe the thing that everything's going to be kind of attached to? You kind of have to think about it almost like real world terms. If something is sitting on the table, what is going to be the main thing that everything is going to be attached to? Is the table itself? Is it does it have some kind of support structure or base or something like that everything can be assembled to? So just think about it in terms of those types of things. So in this case, it is going to be this thing called the wheel plate. And you'll also notice that the first thing that you bring in, is fixed. So you'll see a little F in parentheses. So when you see that F, that means that it's a fixed piece. All the other ones just have a dash line through them. That means all the other ones, you can just move them around all freely. There you go. All these other ones are just free to move. But when I click on the wheel plate, it won't move. And not sure exactly why SOLIDWORKS does it only on the first one. It could be just a positioning thing, like, I don't know. It could be a number of things. So the first item is always fixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to set it to float. So when you set it to float, it removes that little F from that. And now I can freely move that around. And if you're familiar with assemblies, then you're familiar with mates. So I'm not sure how much I'll go into mates, but I'll just go over just the basic ones, right? I think we're all familiar with just either selecting directly from the visibility of a part to the visibility of an assembly, and a plane on the assembly, and just clicking on mate. And so they're mated. Initially, it just goes coincident. That's what I want. I want them to come together, meaning coincident. So I click OK. The other way to select, if a plane is not visible, like in this case, the right plane, I don't see the right plane on my wheel plate, but I do see it on my assembly. So I'm going to click here. And so now I'm going to have to select it from the part list here under the feature tree. So I go to the appropriate part. It's the wheel plate. And I click on right plane for that. So they're both now on the list here, right plane, and then the right plane of the wheel plate. And I say OK. So once you hit OK, it clears this out. And if everything's OK here, it just makes that into a mate. And then it's waiting for the next mate, right? So the next one is the top plane of the part with the top plane of my assembly. And that places it right at the bottom there. So I say OK. All right, so now everything is centered. I know that that plate is perfectly centered with my assembly, my universe here. All right, so the next thing is this piece over here, which is the bracket. And so this is going to be sitting up on top here. So what are some of the things that are common with that? You always have to kind of ask yourself, okay, what can I mate to what? So in this case, let's say the top of this piece with the bottom of this bracket, those two items can be mated. So if this space is selected, you can hit Control and select the top of this space and then click on mate. There's another way of doing that. And it goes coincident. That's what you want. You want them to just come together. They're just maybe it's in a, you want them to be touching. All right. So now those two are coincident, but I'm still free to move this piece. So it's just kind of sliding on top of this, right? So the next one should be, let's say, the middle of this plate with the middle of this bracket here. So right plane of my wheel plate with, I'm going to expand the bracket, and it looks like the right plane of that bracket. Okay, so now it looks like I have two directions of travel that are now locked. And usually it's three to completely lock something, usually. Not always, but in most cases. So the third axis of freedom is this back and forth, this Z axis. So with this one, saying, okay, I know I want this to be flush with this side, or I can select these two cylinders and those two can be concentric. Let's try that. Let's try the cylinders. It automatically goes to concentric, meaning that it shares the same center line there. And now it's completely locked there. So that looks good. All right, with something like this, I can mirror this so that I can just have one on the other side, or I can basically bring it in again. And you can just drag it from the window again, from over here. So this is the bracket. And I know it's the same part, so I don't have to necessarily make it, you wouldn't make a new bracket, a new part or duplicate that part. You would just bring it in again. That's called an instance of the same part. And so I can either drag it in again, so it creates the other side, or an easier way, let me delete that. An easier way is just to hold down Control and just drag that piece, and it brings it in again. See, so the bracket, it's listed here where it's selected, and again down here. So that's the second one. It's the same exact part. It's just brought in twice. Okay, so this is the one I have to now flip. Some of the things are going to be the same, like the bottom of this to the top of that, mated. I think at this point, maybe I can select the 2 cylinders. That one and that one. And then that way I can turn it. So it's that degree, the degree of freedom is still kind of open there. And with that one, I know it's the bottom bracket here, so I'm going to select right plane with the right plane of my part there. And it straightens it out. Okay, so now I have that other bracket there. Okay, what's the next thing? So I know that this axle piece is the next piece that's going to go right in between that. So obviously the concentric, it's the first thing. So it goes concentric. And actually I'm going to turn off my ambient. I think I got to be out of this mate thing for that. Okay. And these 2 pieces should be exactly the same width, like the width from this edge to this edge to this face and this face. They should be, I think they should be exactly the same, but I'm not sure. And so it looks like, yeah, I think it is. So I'm just going to make it, oops, include these selections. So what I'll do is I'll just select this face and that face, and they're mated. Turn off the ambient occlusion because that takes too much memory there. That's why I usually turn off ambient occlusion and I turn off shadows because it just, sometimes they just get in the way. So ambient occlusion is off, shadows is off now. Okay. All right, so next thing is the wheel. So those 2 faces mated. I'll say okay. And then I want to center that. So a couple ways you could do that too. I know the wheel must have a plane right in the center. So there it is, front plane to the, let's see, front plane of the plate. Now that's perfectly centered. Okay, and then the last thing is this pin. So this is going to have 4 pins, and so you can either do the first one and just mate all of those pieces, or you can hold down Control and make the other pieces. Get out of mate mode here. So Control drag, and Control drag, and it creates those other instances. Select those 2, mate them. So I'm just making the very top of that with this face. That and that. Top that face with that face, and drops it in there. Circular face with a circular face there. And the top of that with that one. And that's it. That's the wheel pulley item. All right, so everything is centered. Everything is, starting with this wheel plate. I know that it's right in the center of my, this universe there, my assembly, and everything is concentric, evenly spaced out there. What else? I was able to duplicate some of these items by just control dragging. So this piece here, and as well as the pins. So when you control drag, it just creates another instance of it, and it's not really it doesn't duplicate that part at all. It just brings it in again. It just, if this one changes, then this one will change if you do edit this part. If you are familiar with assemblies, you know that you can edit any one of these parts within the assembly. So let's say this, opening bracket here. I'm going to go up here to edit part. Maybe I have to save the assembly. Let's see, it's this one. And so, if you need to edit any one of these elements, go ahead. And, maybe there's something on this piece here. So I'll just make a sketch on that really quick. I'm just going to drag a cut through this. So it just creates this notch at this point. So any change that I made here, look on the other side, there's the same thing. So there's the instance of that, some of the benefits of creating that. Okay, how's everybody doing with their own assemblies? Any stopping points, anything that you missed, or any trouble spots? Everybody doing okay with assembling this simple piece?